What a privilege tonight. I get to have thanked Jeannie Becker, and I now get to introduce Bonnie Brooks. I mean, this is really a privilege for me. Thank you. I have to put on glasses, unfortunately. On behalf of Norton Rose and Scotiabank and KPMG, the co-presenting sponsors, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker tonight. Bonnie Brooks, as most of you know, is president of the Hudson's Bay Company, founded in 1670. It was called, I think at the time, the Governors and Company of Adventurers of English Traders in the Hudson's Bay. I'd like to change my firm name to Norton Rose Adventurers. Hudson's Bay is the world's oldest continuously operating company. And just to add another icon to its network, Lord & Taylor became Lord & Taylor, which was founded in 1826, and at the time it advertised itself as selling hosiery, Mrs. Wear, and elegant cashmere shawls. Lord & Taylor, an icon of the US, taken over by Hudson's Bay, an icon of Canada. I think we're all very proud. And this combined two great companies. Prior to becoming president of the combined companies, Ms. Brooks had served as president and CEO of the Bay since September of 2008. Prior to that, she spearheaded the revitalization of Asia's Lane Crawford, bringing many of the world's leading brands into Greater China and Southeast Asia. Bonnie, we do have offices in those areas. She served as Executive Vice President, General Merchandise Manager, and Senior VP of Marketing for Holt Renfrew. And she's also been the editor-in-chief of Flair magazine. Bonnie has been recognized on the top 20, as one of the top 25 retailers worldwide by Monocle magazine, and was named by Fast Company magazine as one of the world's 100 most creative people in business. Since joining the Hudson's Bay Company, Ms. Brooks has raised more than $17 million for charitable organizations, including the Red Cross, Canadian Olympic Foundation, and the Canadian Breast Cancer Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a 2011 Top 100 winner in the Corporate Executives category, Bonnie Brooks. Bonnie?
Hi, I'm Bonnie Brooks, and it's Wednesday, December 5th, and today's one day. Oh, I'm not allowed to talk about the company. We were given a very long list of instructions, very strict instructions for speaking tonight that said we couldn't sell anything. And since I normally talk about the Hudson's Bay Company, thank you, the oldest continually operating company in the world, I was forced to think of some other stories. So I'm going to start my first story in 2001 in Hong Kong. I had just returned from Fashion Week in New York in September during 9/11. Jeannie will remember this well. She's sitting beside me tonight. We've also been friends for 30 years. But Jeannie and I were in New York together at 9/11, and we actually hitched a ride with somebody else back to Canada on the 12th. But anyway, I got back to Hong Kong, and still reeling from the shock of it all, I received a call from my boss, a very influential Chinese businessman, in fact, my owner, very consistently every year in the top 40 of Forbes' wealthiest people in the world. He said, "I have a daughter in Boston who has just graduated from Wellesley, and if I could convince her to come back to Hong Kong for 6 months, could she be your shadow?" Be my shadow? Are you kidding me? My first thought was, of course, terror. But before I knew what to say, I had already blurted out, "Sure." So the next 7 years went by in a flash. Not only did she shadow me, but I learned the art of mentoring. I developed a program for her of not just what she could learn from me, but we brought in experts to build actual learning programs and case studies on strategy, on finance, on organizational behavior, on really every key management discipline. A sort of retail in-house fashion mini MBA. And she blossomed from a student with absolutely no interest in fashion to a department store president featured in the first pages of the inaugural China Vogue magazine issue as a stunning entrepreneur. That was amazing. She actually became the president of Lane Crawford, and when that happened, I became the president of our group of companies, and we spun off 4 divisions out of the main department store business into 500 stores with 50 brands that we managed, that we brought into China for franchise and distribution. And we bought another public company during that time. But 3 months ago, in September, she was married at a very posh wedding ceremony in London. And the reception was at Claridge's. And during the reception speeches, her father surprised me with a special acknowledgement. And Jennifer and her new husband presented me with a tea ceremony. It's a Chinese tradition of serving tea. It's reserved for only a mother or a teacher. And I was overwhelmed, as you can imagine. I haven't worked with her for 4 years, so it was very unexpected and very emotional. And it made me reflect on all that I had taught her. And I realized that actually she taught me much more than I ever taught her. A student and a mentor on the same journey discover new paths for each other. It's hard for me to put into exact words, but for those of you who know what I'm talking about, you know the learnings and the joy mentoring can bring. And if you want to know, I urge you to get out there and seek the opportunity to give your time to someone at some time in your life. On to my next story. Possibly many of you are now or have been at some time in your career in marketing and sales. I certainly have, and I'm glad for that experience because throughout life, you will likely find yourself buying or selling something. Several years ago, I was fortunate to be at a session where we were asked to create a marketing plan for our own life. And I found it actually forced me to sit down and think about my own life outcome in the same way that I would actually strategize a company marketing plan and desired outcome. In other words, it forced me to write the story, my personal dream, and how it would read in 5 years down the road. What would the newspaper story be? Forecasting the future, planning to outcomes rather than daily managing inputs can deliver a major strategic change in your life and in your business. I love doing this in companies. We did it at the Bay with our most senior executive team members. We were mapping out our vision for what success would look like down the road in 5 years at the Bay, and this is 4 years ago. And each executive took time on their own to write out what their interview would read. Some of them picked Women's Wear Daily, some of them picked the Toronto Star, some picked the Wall Street Journal. But what would the interview read in 5 years on their success and the success of the Bay? And when they each actually read their articles aloud to us, they were amazing. Listening to each of them was fantastic and far more interesting than the story I would have written for all of us. So my advice is do it tonight. When you get home, write your own story. Take a full page with all the details that you visualized for your life in 5 years. What's the story you're going to tell? And you're likely going to surprise yourself with what you'll write. Some people find entirely new paths, and these paths take them where their hearts want to go, not where their head may be going. Listening to our hearts and not only our heads is another story. In Asia, I found myself immersed in the land of New Age thinking. I was there for 11 years, and I set about studying new philosophies. I had the benefit of terrific encounters with teachers and leaders, even the Dalai Lama. And one of the lessons I learned, and I hope my teachers will forgive me for simplifying it here, is that our general pattern in life is to operate in either one of two ways: through listening to our hearts or overly influenced by our heads. When we listen to our head, it's usually our ego that we're hearing. It's the ego who cares about status and position and money and power and jealousy and financial gain. And when we listen to our hearts, we're operating out of a real honesty, a passion for ourselves and a passion for others. And we exhibit a natural joie de vivre. Our pursuit to balance these two is, of course, life's challenge. And it's believed that the journey from the head to the heart, how apropos, is the shortest journey physically, but takes a lifetime to achieve and to learn how to get there. And so when all around you is not clear or is fuzzy and you feel anxious and troubled, it's a good time to sit down with yourself and ask why you're behaving in a way that you don't really wish to. Is it because your head and your heart are not in sync? Is it because your ego is stepping in the way of your passion? Women, in fact, twice more often than men, don't stay in jobs where we are only satisfying our heads and not our hearts. In 2008, when it was announced that I would be the new CEO of the Bay, there were dozens of articles in the Canadian press prior to my arrival back in Canada, and to be honest, most of them weren't very good. And some of them said, is it too late for the Bay? Is the Bay a department store dinosaur? Even some of our internal team members thought the Bay had a limited chance of revival. But there was one article that struck me as the most profound, not because of the writer, but because of the blogger comments on it. I was in Hong Kong reading the Globe online, and at the end of the story, the comment was from a reader who was a little negative on the Bay's future, and he said, I think it was a he, might not have been, in big capital letters in the blog, "Good luck, Miss Brooks, you're going to need it." And I thought how ironic it was that I had in fact spent the last several years studying just that, luck. You see, luck in Chinese culture and tradition is the most valued gift. Luck is good fortune. Luck is what every Chinese holiday revolves around. Lucky numbers, sacrifices and offerings to enhance one's luck are the core of the culture. The karmic circle of the Eastern philosophy involves sending out positive mind force to receive positive karma in return. Almost every ancient civilization served offerings to improve their luck. Romans worshipped the Greek goddess Fortuna thousands of years ago. Carl Jung, the psychologist, coined the term synchronicity for the coincidence of timing of good luck events generated through the universe. Jean-Paul Sartre and Freud both agreed that luck had an influence on the events in one's life, and that people who believe in good luck are more optimistic and satisfied with their lives and have, quote, better moods. Luck defies probability, and therefore there are scientists who dispute luck as random. But they also agree that luck can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, and the power of positive attitude can go a long way to healing the effect of negative energy. Today I want to share that there was once a time I dreaded getting up and heading off to work every morning. And now I thank the universe every day that I can work, that I'm able to work. How lucky are we to be able to work, to be able to mentor others, and to share what we have learned. I also believe in manifestation, and that we can manifest luck into our lives. A good friend of mine just sold her business for $350 million to a European luxury conglomerate. And she has often said that she manifested her company into being. She is the former sole owner, now a shareholder, and still the CEO of Net-a-Porter, a luxury online retailer. She visualized and created her business 12 years ago and credits the book Creative Visualization as the catalyst to helping create her dream. It's a great book by Shaki Gawan, and I highly recommend it. I'm sure most of you in the room know the name Nora Ephron, who wrote some of the most memorable screenplays like You've Got Mail and Something's Gotta Give. She always nailed the key differences between men and women. One of my favorite lines in You've Got Mail is when Meg Ryan is losing her little bookstore to the big bad Fox bookstore, and Tom Hanks says, "It isn't personal, it's business." And she says, "No, it's personal." And I can relate to that, as I'm sure many of you in the room can. 4 years ago, I was sort of closer to the end of my career than to the beginning, and I was embarking on the turnaround of the Bay, and it was actually a pretty big risk, but failure was not an option. And it wasn't just business, it was personal. I wanted the company to win. I loved its authenticity and its history, and it was with great pride that I accepted the opportunity. The company performance had been sliding downwards for several years, and previous teams possibly didn't have the courage to take the company to a whole new market position, or maybe just didn't have the same dream. For the last 4 years, our team has shared a dream. Together, we are turning the vision into reality. Vision is the art of taking the invisible and painting a picture of the end game. What does the end game look like? What's the castle, as we call it? Vision is painting a picture that is almost tangible, that shows others clearly where you're heading, so they can get on board and make it happen. And the faster everyone can see the vision and begin executing it, the faster it manifests. In our case, we reached our 5-year plan before 4 years. And the performance of the company has resulted in the company going public last week on the Toronto Stock Exchange, opening it up. Thank you. Opening it up for Canadian ownership for the first time in many years. Pride is one of our company core values, and it is with great pride that I hold the position I have, and it is with great pride that each of our 20+ thousand Canadian employees are now shareholders in this magical company. So leadership and mentorship are a privilege, and we must always remember what Mahatma Gandhi said, my favorite line: "If it's to be, it's up to me." Thank you very much.